Hello, everyone. My name is Zenobia Harris, and I am the CEO for the Kent Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of myself, my staff, and the board, we'd like to welcome you to our Legislative Candidates Forum. I want to say thank you to our presenters today, to the candidates for accepting this invitation. This is one of the many events that we hold around the legislative season for the Chamber. And just so you know, also a thank you to the Chamber members who are joining us live on Facebook today via the social media channel, I Love Kent, and also here on the call. Being a Chamber member, part of that benefit is the Chamber is here to advocate for you, and this is a part of that. So I appreciate you being in that process and learning who is going to represent us in the upcoming years. Your business success is really important to us as a Chamber, but it also is directly tied to who we have in office and the support that we get from the Chamber. So we appreciate you all being here today. Before we get going, I'm going to go over a quick few housekeeping items. For the best view of this today, you can go into gallery view. That would allow you as a attendee to see all of the speakers today, or you can go into active speaker mode, which would allow you to only see the speaker that is speaking at that moment. So up to you how you want to enjoy this meeting today. Also, everyone's phone has been placed on mute, so all questions can come in via the social media channel or the Q&A, or you can send a chat message. And if we have time, we will make sure that we get those questions answered today. If not, we are going to follow up with our candidates and get those questions answered for you. Before I turn it over to our moderator, I do want to recognize our sponsor for the day. Our sponsor today for this candidates forum is Fairway Independent Mortgage. And Fairway Independent Mortgage, their loan officer, Cindy Cameron, is also our president, our 2020 president for the Chamber. So we appreciate her leading us through this pandemic. She would like you all to know at Fairway Mortgage, you're going to get national strength with hometown service. They are dedicated to providing their buyers with the utmost care and satisfaction during the home purchase or refinance. So if you have any questions in regards to that, feel free to reach out to her. Her direct line is here. It's 206-484-1129. With that being said, thank you so much to Fairway Independent Mortgage. And now we're going to turn it over to our Government Affairs Co-Chair, Carmen Goers, and she will introduce and get us going. Thank you.
I was like, welcome to the Legislative Candidates Forum for the 33rd and 47th District. My name is Carmen Goers, Vice President and Commercial Lending Officer for Heritage Bank. It is my pleasure to moderate this forum so that we can hear directly from the candidates on key concerns of our membership. Due to time constraints, each candidate will have 2 minutes for their introduction and closing comments, with 90 seconds to answer each question. We recognize that that's not a lot of time, so we know that each candidate will be respectful of each other and the time requirements. If you have additional questions or comments for the candidates, I encourage you to reach out to their campaign websites directly and connect for those questions that you still may have. Each candidate will have 90 seconds, as I said, to answer questions. You will see the 30-second stopwatch pop up with 30 seconds remaining in your time so that you're aware. Now, I would like to welcome our candidates for the House of Representatives. Please introduce yourself with a summary of your education, training, professional background, and why you're running for elected office in November. Starting with the 33rd District, position number 1, Kerry French.
Oh, thank you. My name is Carrie French. I'm born and raised in Washington State. I did 20 years in the military, so I've lived all over the world. I served with the United Marine Corps and I served with the United States Navy. I come from a family of farmers, of pastors, and of small business owners. So I grew up knowing a lot of the challenges that they go through. I have a few degrees in forensics, paralegal, and I'm just finishing up my bachelor's degree in pre-law government from Regent University. I'm running to give people a choice in the 33rd District, and I had no intention of running. I've run state representative campaigns and I know what it's like, and it is tough. But I just, as much as I respect Representative Orwall, I just wanted to give people a choice. And so I ran as a write-in candidate, and I'm sorry to spring that on you, Representative Orwall, but I just want to give people a choice, and I actually won 1.5% of the required 1% of the cast ballots, and so I'm going to be on the ballot, and I'm willing to listen to people. And I have done some work down in Olympia as a citizen lobbyist. I was not paid; I was volunteer, and I was down in Olympia bothering people down there to, get some bills passed. And it's a lot of work, and I realize that, but I'm ready to do that. So my website is french.com, and I am willing to talk to people on the phone. My number is 253-951-3721, and you can call me. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Representative Orwall.
Good afternoon. I'm Tina Orwell. I have the honor of representing the 33rd Legislative District. My background, I grew up in Oak Harbor. My dad was a World War II veteran, and we lived by the base. I went to school at the University of Washington. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology and a master's in social work administration. I worked 20 years in community mental health and working on system improvements in government. So when I came to the legislature, I was really excited to really do changes at a system level to help families and businesses and individuals. I'm running again. I know we have a tough road ahead of us. It's a stressful time, and I know families are struggling, businesses are struggling. I remember when we first started, when I first ran, the Hanson Dam crisis was underway, and it was incredibly stressful in Kent. And I know we came together in partnerships, and I think that's what we need now. We need partnerships between local and county and state and federal government with our business partners and community leaders. So I'm running again. I hope to bring us all back together. My door is always open. I'm learning so much from the business community who have been so creative in how to adapt to this COVID environment. So again, I hope we can team up and build something better than we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina. Position number 2 in the 33rd, Mia Gregerson, Representative Gregerson.
Well, good morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. A little bit about me is that I grew up here in South King County. I've been here consecutively for over 40 years. I currently live in SeaTac. I'm one of 4 generations here. I went to public school and went to actually Green River Community College at the time, played tennis, and then went to Highline College and got my degree there. One of 3 generations actually that graduated from Howland College, and then University of Washington. And then I spent over 20 years in the dental field, small business, before being elected. And really, as an elected official, I came in as just a regular citizen also, as we kind of talked about this morning, with no poli-sci background, but recognizing the difference between programs and policies. And really, that's the time, the moment right now that we need to be coming together, as my seatmate talked about, and bringing people together and keeping the door wide open, ensuring that the voices that have the hardest time typically coming to Olympia to voice their concerns and their opinions, right? We want diversity and diversity of opinions, sizes of businesses, all different backgrounds, to get us through this recession that we all know we're going to face. But this recession isn't something that we can't get through, because we have 2009 to really look at and do a better job at getting through. And I'm really excited to hear about different proposals that my colleagues will be presenting. And I think today we'll hear about different ideas. And as we know in Kent, the demographics are changing quite a bit. So excited to be part of this conversation today. And again, my door's always open too. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. From the 47th District, position number 1, Representative Deborah Entenman.
Thank you to the Kent Chamber and to those who are listening today. My name is Deborah Entenmann. I am running for re-election in the 47th Legislative District. I grew up in Seattle, moved to Kent 23 years ago, raised my children here with my husband. I started college late in life. It wasn't until I was near 40 that I decided that I would start college when my children were also beginning on that path. I went to Highline Community College and then transferred to Seattle University. I have graduated with a degree in political science and a minor in history. I worked with the Children's Alliance, which was a legislative advocacy group, working on policies public policy that affected children and families. I then went to work in the legislature as a session aide while I was in college, and then was hired by Congressman Adam Smith. He represents the 9th Congressional District. And as it looked before, it has changed since I first started working for him. So I worked in Thurston, Pierce, and King counties. I was his district director for the last 3 years of a 12-year career working for the congressman. And it is an honor to represent the 47th district. What I hope to continue to do is improve the lives of families in our district, to make sure that our tax system is more fair, and that everyone has an opportunity to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Entenman. Position number 2 in the 33rd, Marliza Melzer.
Hey, hi, good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm a 62-year-old mother of 3 and a longtime graduate of Central Washington University. I served for 4 years on the board of the North Highline Unincorporated Area Council, where I was instrumental in getting a new play structure at Southern Heights Elementary School, as well as new sidewalks along Des Moines Memorial Drive. I served for 2 years on the now defunct Boulevard Park Community Council, and I served for about 10 years as a neighborhood block watch captain, all during 34 years of running a household on a budget with limited funds. So I'm running for office mostly due to out-of-hand taxation. I woke up one morning and went, I can't do this. This is nuts. Sure, we need taxes, but even when we had a surplus last year, our legislature, including my opponent, voted for more, to the tune of $27 billion in new taxes. This was just last year. And this year, before COVID hit, before the lockdowns anyhow, our legislature again voted in favor of more taxes, a 13.7% increase in property taxes. I can't sustain that. I'm a homeowner, but I can't sustain that. And I don't know how many middle class, working class people can, and certainly the poor can't. So this year too, the legislature voted in favor of a new explicit sex ed program beginning in kindergarten. Our children are precious and don't need to be sexualized. So while most people were not in favor of it, the legislature pushed it through anyhow. I don't know why they want to sexualize children, but, and I don't get it why voters keep voting in the same people who don't do right by them. If you have any questions, concerns, ideas, my phone number is open game too, 206-909-6247. Thank you.
Thank you, Marliza. In the 47th district, position number 1, Kyle.
Hi guys, well, my name is Kyle with a very hard last name, Lyebyedyev. A little bit about me. I was born in Ukraine when the Ukraine was a part of USSR. I was born in a military family in 2002. I legally immigrated to the United States, immigrated to pursue my happiness, pursue the American dream. I got married in 2004, already married happily for 16 years, have 3 kids. In 2007, I opened up my small construction business. And since then I'm working, well, you can see I'm still working actually today towards that dream. Why I decided to run, I maybe don't have that extremely political experience, but what I do believe that true representation, it starts from the people. So the representatives in the legislature, they are representing people, regardless of the race or where they come from. So I ran to show the other people, the people like me, who maybe wasn't born here, but who came for pursuing happiness. They can be the change. They can run for an office. They can bring new innovative ideas to the legislature to help people. And as Mia actually mentioned, diversity. I do clearly see that yes, that's what I want to bring in the legislation, that diversity, different type of views from the people, and to make actually for that diversity, for the different of people, a much better life, so they can achieve much bigger goals. Vote for Kyle. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. And for the 47th district, position number 2, Ted Cooke.
Well, thank you. Great to see you, Carmen. Thank you guys for having us. This is awesome. My name is Ted Cooke. I am a father of 5. My wife and I live in Covington, Washington. And in addition to raising 5 kids, we have 2 puppy dogs. So we have a very full house. I've lived in the greater area my entire life. I have a degree in theology, and currently I'm a senior software tester at Microsoft. So what I do is I learn extremely complex systems, and then I ask the correct questions and get the correct data to be able to improve them. And that's just how I roll. And I'm running for elected office because in 2018, the legislature passed a law that says every employer, even churches, even the Sisters of Charity, Catholic nuns, has to pay for abortion through their insurance policies. And that was when I said the state legislature has gone too far. So after years of talking about politics, I decided to throw my hat into the ring, and I decided to run. And it has been a great experience. I have learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to getting elected.
Thank you. Thank you. And last but not least, for the 47th District, Representative Pat, my new name for you.
Well, thanks to the Kent Chamber of Commerce. Thanks, Zenobia. Thanks, Carmen, for putting this forum on today. My wife and I have lived in South Kent County for the last 30 years. We raised our 3 daughters here, graduated from Kent Public Schools, and all 3 attended Green River College. Thanks, Suzanne Johnson, Dr. Johnson. I saw that you're on today too. I've served as mayor of the city of Covington. I was a council member. I volunteered in a number of schools in the school district. As a PA president, I've involved in a lot of nonprofit organizations, as well as a youth sports coach, both t-ball and soccer, great deal of fun. And I've been a legislator for the last 16 years and proud to represent 47th District in Olympia. And it's something that I'd like to continue. It's been mentioned that we're going to face some really significant challenges over the next 2 years, both on the healthcare side because of the COVID pandemic, but also on the economic side and trying to pull our state through this. I'm a firm believer in the analogy or the statement that, with every crisis comes opportunity. And I believe that there are opportunities. As Mia talked about before, we learned a lot from the Great Recession. I was a legislator at that point. I served on our budget team. I learned the mistakes that we made and the things that we did right. I think that'll be very helpful in moving our state through this crisis over the next 2 years. I am always available to listen to your concerns, to work with you. I've been endorsed by a majority of all the mayors of the cities I represent, as well as a majority of the council members. I've been endorsed by the Association of Washington Business. And that's because I'm willing and able to listen to their concerns and work to get solutions done.
Thank you, Pat. I really appreciate the energy that you as candidates have brought to the table today, and I'm excited for these conversations we're going to have today. At the Kent Chamber, we bring the business community together. Our purpose is to develop, promote, and facilitate an environment in which the area business community can grow and prosper. So question number 1, what do you think the business community needs from the legislature as we work our way through the pandemic to recovery? We're going to start with the 47th District and position number 1 with Kyle.
Yes, thank you, Carmen. Well, as a small business owner, I can tell you what the exit from the COVID, it's one of the toughest one. So what I see that we need to do to boost the small businesses, at least for a year, to drop B&O taxes, which will give a biggest boost to our small businesses and backfill the positions so they can grow and hire the people back, and which will drop in the cost.
Thank you, Kyle. Representative Deborah.
I think our small businesses need a lot of support. I think they do feel that they need tax relief. I feel that if all businesses, including large businesses, paid their fair share of taxes, then small businesses wouldn't feel the burden so much. So I think that we really do need to reform. We need a comprehensive way to reform our tax system so that everyone pays their fair share.
Thank you. Pat.
Yeah, thank you. And first is using the federal CARES Act dollars. We've been able to send out some grants to keep businesses open, and we need to continue to do that as we move through this pandemic. And then as we transition, it's been said here a number of times already, but we need to reform our tax system. The B&O system does not work well. I think the pandemic has pointed out the fact that a business that's not making any money and still paying taxes, it just doesn't work. And so it has to be replaced. That's my top priority. We did receive good news yesterday from Employment Security Department that you won't see an increase in your unemployment taxes next year, which was a huge concern from the business community. I think that we've operated our system very well in the state of Washington. The trust fund is actually doing very well. And you're seeing other states already taking out significant loans. New Jersey took out a $4.5 billion loan because they didn't manage their trust fund very well. We've done that very well here in Washington. And we just need to really listen to the business community as we move forward and as we're looking at initiatives brought by our fellow legislators.
Thank you. Ted.
Yeah, so first of all, we really need the legislature to actually meet because this has been going on for 5 months and the governor declared it. And after 30 days, the legislature really should meet and step in and put sidewalls on what the governor is doing. And we also now need to address a $9 billion shortfall, budget shortfall for the next 3 years. Legislature has not done that. We need to do that today. The way that the shutdown was handled was incredibly uneven. And you can't tell me that a big box store is safer than a small business run by a mom and pop. There's fewer people in the store. And then we've got like, Dairy Queen is open where there's like, 16-year-olds bumping over each other, but we can't have restaurants. Incredibly unfair. And that has so hurt the people of Washington. We've created a real ball of wax with our response to this. And the legislature should be proactive and we should be basing everything we're doing on science. So I think the legislature needs to reduce regulation. We need to reduce taxation. One strength we do have is that the state does have a fair and flat sales tax, which encourages savings, encourages wealth creation, which is much better than say an income tax, which discourages productivity because we need all the goods and services we can get right now in society.
Thank you, Ted. District 33rd District, position number 2, Marliza.
Government regulations are a detriment to establishment, growth, and success of small businesses. When you create regulations for large businesses, they shouldn't be the same as for the small businesses. Small businesses can't sustain all the stuff that large businesses can. I think our small businesses should also receive B&O tax relief. And if I was a legislator right now, I would be actively meeting with business owners and chambers to find out what regulations need to be overturned in order to help our businesses thrive in meaningful ways. If we continue to quarantine healthy people and destroy the economy, we'll run out of resources and tens of millions will become homeless. So who are we helping then? Just some questions.
Thank you. Mia.
Thank you. Well, I like a lot of the comments that have been said already. I think to expand off of that is small businesses are the spine of our community, but they are the most, both the most resilient, but also the most vulnerable. And I think we can continue to work together to make sure that it's the easiest as possible to accept federal dollars, as we're hoping stimulus money will come from the federal government, as we saw in the last recession. We also can look at ensuring that the regulations that were in place prior to COVID are still relevant now. I think that we're being as nimble as possible, but let's remember that government works the best when you don't even notice us. So that also means that we have to ensure that what decisions we're doing or making, we're making them on behalf of the entire system, the entire state. We also recognize that we want to continue to make sure that the city of Kent is thriving. And so we'll be talking and following the leadership of Representative Sullivan on the mitigation dollars. So there's just a lot at hand, a lot at stake. And I think that it is great to remember that we are meeting with business owners all the time. For me, it's a lot of the community business organizations and the nonprofits who are on the ground, front line, serving food and ensuring that people are finding the internet and housing, which will continue to make sure our economy is thriving.
Thank you. Position number 1, Tina.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an incredibly important time to support our businesses. Of course, they had to close to no fault of their own, and they're struggling. I like a lot of the conversation I've heard. I actually think the B&O tax is incredibly regressive. I know there's going to be a member, I think, introducing a bill to actually eliminate it and replace it with the corporate tax. I think that opens it up for a dialogue, and I think that's what we need to do right now. There's also a tax reform group looking at these reforms. I think, we got to work closely with business. I was really grateful that when the CARES dollars came through commerce, that they were able to hit more of the small businesses, the sole proprietor, the mom and pop shops that maybe didn't get federal dollars. I've been trying to go out and visit with businesses. I went out to a bowling alley and they were so creative of how they were wearing masks, how they were positioning people. And we got to work with our businesses so that they can reopen and still keep people safe. So I really appreciate the businesses that are out there really trying to figure out how to thrive in these tough times.
Thank you, Tina. Carrie.
Yes, like I said, come from a family of small business owners. My brother is a small sole proprietor and my folks are a small business. And the biggest thing I hear from other business owners is that stupid B&O tax. I just want to say, for the last 40 plus years, we've had one party rule, and I'm hearing people say, let's get rid of it. Well, then why haven't you done it? We've 40 years, you've had time to get rid of it. The B&O tax does not care if you're profitable. The B&O tax is taken right off the top, no matter how much you've made or how much you've lost. It needs to go, and we need to make sure that our regulations are reasonable. Obviously, we have to have some regulations, but we shouldn't be hamstringing these businesses. Government needs to get out of the way of businesses. So or lose, I do expect that B&O tax to go away. And I'm talking to all of the representatives now. I expect you to, if I do not win this race, I expect you to push that through because it is killing businesses and small businesses. So we need that to go away. Like I said, I'm always open to other ideas, but we definitely need to make sure that we've got some relief for the government shutdown that happened from our governor, Jay Inslee. And it's really sad that he vetoed a bill he said he would pass, and Boeing is now leaving. So we need somebody who will do what they say, and they say what they mean and mean what they say. And I am a person that says what I mean and means what I say.
Thank you, Carrie. Moving on to question number 2. And some of you have spoken about, we asked you about legislation, but we want to know, what are your top 2 legislative issues in the upcoming session, and what do you hope to accomplish? And I'll start with Ted Cooke in the 47th.
Did you say top 2 issues?
Top 2.
Top 2. So less taxes, more roads. And so if I'm elected, I hope that we can, first of all, repeal the entirety of the 2019 last minute taxes. There was 25 billion in new taxes passed in literally the final few hours of the legislative session a year and a half ago. And the taxes are things like the largest tax is a tax on home caregivers. Well, you're taxing children who are taking care of parents. You're taxing spouses who are taking care of a loved one. I think that's insanity. There's a bevy of taxes against financial institutions, against travel agencies. I think those should all go right off the top. McCleary happened, that was needed. So that did raise the budget by 16% in 2018 in terms of the 2018 budget. But the past 10 years, we've almost doubled the state budget. We've almost doubled the burden on taxpayers. That's huge. And in terms of more roads, right now, something like 70% of the budget goes not towards roads, and our infrastructure is absolutely crumbling. We should spend more like a majority on what 95% of the people use, which is single cars, and then spend a much smaller amount on mass transit, which only 5% of people use. And I don't know if you've ever noticed, but you ever see a Metro bus, they're usually empty, and that was before the pandemic. So I think we need roads and less taxes.
Thank you. I'm trying to keep my commentary down on Sound Transit. That's all I'll say on my car tabs. Sullivan, you're on mute.
Hopefully I'll have it figured out by the end of the afternoon. You know, a lot of numbers being thrown around here, and most of them are just flat out wrong. I mean, the $9+ billion deficit that my opponent mentioned a few minutes ago, the last revenue forecast, we're down about 4.2 billion. And that's because of some of the steps that we've taken as a state in order to try to get our economy going again. The two things that I would really push for in this next session, again, is eliminating the B&O tax. One of the reasons why it hasn't been accomplished to this point is that the largest business organization, the Association of Washington Business, really hasn't been ready to move forward with the proposal. And we're not going to impose a new tax on the business community. We need to work with the business community to make sure that it works effectively. The second thing that I really think needs to happen is a transportation package. It's one of the things that creates jobs across this entire state. Every corner of the state's impacted. It not only improves our infrastructure, but puts money in the pockets of workers who will then spend those dollars in the business community and in supporting our economic recovery. So I think those two things really go hand in hand to help us move through this pandemic and recession even stronger as a state.
Thank you. Deborah.
My top two priorities as we move into the next legislative session would be: one, is to ensure that our most vulnerable people are not hurt by any budget decisions that we will have to make, and that we have comprehensive criminal justice reform, which does include police reform in our state.
Thank you, Deborah. Kyle.
My two priorities, of course, it's as a business owner, less taxes, less regulations, and dropping the B&O tax. Then the second one, we're writing a laws not only for the present, we're writing a laws for the future. So my second and biggest priority is the educational system, to give more funds and bigger boost for our schools and for our kids so they can go on in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. From the 33rd District, Mia.
Thanks. Well, I've been spending a lot of my interim working on closing the digital divide. You can imagine that with COVID, when it hit, we were all stuck at home and we weren't using the roads, but the internet now became our new highway. As surveys continue to come in, we're learning more and more of our students are not even accessing the educational system because either their internet isn't fast enough, their devices aren't appropriate, or their digital literacy skills are not there. And of course, our school districts need all of the attention, as Kyle mentioned, all the attention that we can. There's a lot of connection for our elders, social, emotional spaces. And again, navigating all these different programs and services that we as government are trying to provide. But also the business community knows that if they're spending a lot of their budget around accessible internet at the speeds that they need in order to be present on the online platform, those are dollars that out of their pockets that they could be using to, again, employ more people, think about their future budgets. And so I think the government has a big priority here in making sure that we're doing better with ensuring that we're closing the digital divide. And again, those are in three legs of the stool, one being infrastructure, two being devices, and third being digital skills and literacy.
Thank you. Position number one, Carrie.
Thank you. I have a lot of goals, but I think the top two would be to get this economy back up and running, to help businesses. We got a lot of things we have to address: the job losses, the business closures. We've got $4 billion in deficit that we're going to have to make up somewhere. And I would fight very hard not to raise taxes. We've got foreclosures are going to be coming because those deferments are going to be coming due. We've got delinquent child support. We've got late and non-payment of unemployment benefits. I mean, there is a ton of things we have to work on. And the other thing I'm very concerned about is our educational system, where the Seattle Times reported half of the kids in Seattle aren't even logging on. So we need to find out why that's happening. Like Representative Gregerson said, it could be their digital skills aren't up to par. Maybe they don't have internet access, or they don't have the the speed that they need. I know in the rural areas, sometimes they don't get the coverage they need. So those are all things that I'm very concerned about. I'm very concerned about parental rights. I do not think the state should be raising our children. That is done by a parent. So all of these things are very important that we need to address. But first and foremost, we've got to get the economy back up and running, because if you can't provide for your family, you know, you can't do a lot of things, and that is very important.
Thank you. Marliza.
Okay, thanks. My first issue would be taxes, because it's so all-encompassing. When the legislature voted in another 13.7% increase in property taxes, I'm thinking, well, there's all these people shouting, screaming about rent limits and things like that. Oh, we can't raise rents more than 10%, but legislators can raise property taxes more than that, which puts the property owners at a huge disparity. So as well, when you raise property taxes like that, it leads to more crime and homelessness, mostly because of the homelessness, because people who even just rent rooms can no longer afford to do so. So, and that's all bad for businesses as well, because look at what happened in Seattle this summer. All the looting and rioting, business owners were decimated. I think, you know, law and order, taxes, all that stuff, it all ties in together. My other big issue is parental rights. It's not as much about business, but in medicine, parents should have a right to determine whether or not they want their children to have a vaccination. They should be able to determine what kind of school they want their children to attend. They should be able to determine kind of the direction, the trajectory of their child's life, so they can grow into becoming productive human beings and business owners.
Thank you, Marliza. Tina.
Thank you. Well, two of the areas I've been working a lot on, one is foreclosure prevention. You know, I started working on this during the Great Recession, and I would tell you, Kent was hit very hard with foreclosure during that time. So we have regular meetings looking at it. We're worried about what's going to happen when the forbearances end. When I was reviewing the hotline data and looking, they've divided by sector of who calls in, and the top sector were small business owners. We need to provide counseling and mitigation and everything they need to stay in their homes. The other thing I would say is we're looking to expand it. Right now it's owner-occupied homes, but we're hearing that small landlords, people that are renting houses and small units are also struggling. And so we want to expand that coverage, and also we want to include people struggling to pay their property taxes. The other thing I've been doing a lot of work on is behavioral health. We know people are really struggling right now. We know our youth are struggling. 3 out of 5 are saying they're experiencing stress, depression. And so we really need to make sure we have a robust system to really help those that are struggling, including at the beginning of emergency response, which is part of, I think, the reforms we need to do in our state. We need professionals that can go out in teams when people are in crisis and help connect them to the service they need. So I think we have an opportunity to do that work right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, as you've all said, South Sound businesses are struggling to keep their doors open during these difficult times. The ability to attract and retain jobs, in addition to growing the economy, is impacted by legislative policies. What policies do you propose or support or will defend against that will encourage economic vitality? We're going to start in the 33rd, and we're going to start with Marliza.
I support opening the state. Could you repeat the question one more time?
What policies do you propose or support that will encourage economic vitality?
Everything that will open the state. I mean, in a nutshell, for real. If we don't open the state, if we don't provide some tax relief for the businesses, if we don't look at them as the struggling entities that they are, and they deserve support, and they deserve to not be screwed over by having to pay taxes that they don't have the money to pay this time around.
Thank you. Mia.
Yeah, hi. Well, I think that there's, I'm continuing to listen to the dialogue today, and it feels like we can do better in educating people on what the taxes pay for, and ensure that as we make cuts or as we look for shifting our resources, that we're doing a better job in educating people at home on what we're using, because there are places where if we cut, will hurt for a very long time, and especially in the business climate. So we need everybody at that table, including you, to ensure that you're letting us know as a chamber that as we're dialoguing about these changes, that we're not hurting the business climate, that we're actually helping to restore it. I think there's a lot of opportunities for best practices and to shoot community-based grants into those areas to infuse, whether it's through CURB funding or economic, vitality funding. Rural Washington is very different than suburban King County. And so we want to be really community-based and how that works and who the trusted messengers are. Knowing when businesses are really at that tipping point and getting in there early to ensure that we're infusing dollars and resources and help early. And again, this is all going to be determined hopefully in November with the federal government doing what they need to do to build a resilient state or a resilient country.
Thank you, Mia. Tina.
Thank you. Well, part of being resilient is being healthy. And how do we get our families healthy? How do we get our businesses healthy? And I do think it's about partnerships. The Kent Chamber, you're great at bringing everyone to the table, and we need to listen to what the right approaches are. I know King County, they've really struggled to get to phase 3. And I think they're looking at that now. Is it because of our testing rates? Because we test more, and do we have to rethink that? So we do have to figure out how we open and how we open safely. And I do think it's going to be through partnerships and figuring out what should the legislative agenda be. I know we've had a great discussion today with some great ideas, and we need to continue that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Carrie.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, everything the government is supposed to do is in this book. This is our state constitution. Transportation is in there and education is in there. I think that for all the talking we're doing about what the money is used for, if you don't have it, you don't have it. So we really need to look at what we can do to help businesses get through to pre-COVID times and get them hiring people again and get them profitable again so that they can contribute to their communities. So that is a big thing. When you go to the cupboard and it's bare, it doesn't matter what food is used for creating that great recipe. If the food's not there, it's not there. And if the money's not there, it doesn't matter what the taxes are going towards, the money's not there. So we've got to make sure we get out of the way as government and we support where we can and where we're mandated to, and just get out of the way otherwise. So we can let businesses do what they do, and that is be innovative and creative and create the life that they want.
Thank you. Just to reiterate, the question is, what policies do you propose or support that will encourage economic vitality? In the 47th, we're going with Pat.
I remembered. So over the short term, it's providing those federal dollars that we're getting through the CARES Act, continue to provide grants for small businesses. But over the longer term, as we go into session in January, the three things that I think we really focus on, number one, again, is that being tax reform and creating a system that's much more equitable for businesses. Secondly is a transportation package that really ensures that goods and services and workers can get where they need to go effectively and efficiently. And then the third area is workforce development. What we see during recessions are that people tend to go back to school for retraining. We know that the new normal is not the old normal, and people will need to be trained in different fields and in different professions. And we want to make sure that as businesses look for qualified candidates, that we're producing them right here in the state of Washington, and they're not having to go out of state in order to get the training or the education that they need. So workforce development is a critical component of our economic recovery.
Thank you. Ted.
Yeah, so economic vitality. So first of all, the shutdown, I think we need to reduce regulation as a legislature. But regarding the shutdown, I don't think any business should be deprived of liberty or property without due process of law. So right now we have a situation where the governor has called a shutdown through a health official, and it's gone for 5 months without being addressed by the legislature. I think that's insane. And I think that you quarantine people who are sick. And I think anytime we deny liberty or property to any individual, we must follow the Bill of Rights. We must have a warrant from a judge naming the person specifically, or the individual or the property, plus oath or affirmation evidence before we shut things down. We obviously need to reduce taxation. We've talked about the B&O tax. One thing I support is to lessen regulation is a Write the Laws Act. And right now, any activist can hand a legislator a bill, and the legislature later can submit it. And I think that the law must be written by legislators. I think we need to enforce property crime, have a no broken windows policy towards crime. We need to heal homelessness, shore up Western State Hospital, and we need to encourage more property development for businesses by easing the Growth Management Act and forcing the easing of local critical areas ordinances.
Thank you, Ted. Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, economic, it will be bad if we're not going to open the state. Yes, I do believe that we can open the state safely for every single person and depending on their views. So as soon as we're going to open up, it will be growth. Then we're going to have to probably cut unprofitable government projects and reinvest those monies in small businesses that struggle in a different ways. And we're going to have to backfill unemployment funds to avoid those huge increases on rates. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah.
I would support, but first of all, I acknowledge that we have COVID, that it is real, and that people are getting sick and dying. So in order to have a recovery of our economy, we need to ensure that we have protections that include for our educators and childcare providers, so that if we're going to send children back to school, so that parents can go back to work, that everyone is safe when they are out in our communities. That is number one. So I support making sure that our COVID recovery plan includes everyone. We need to shore up. What we are hearing in community is, in order for people to get back to work, they need adequate childcare. And right now we have many of our childcare providers have stopped doing their work because they were concerned about their safety and the safety of the children that they take care of. So that is, I support making sure that childcare providers have the PPE they need, that teachers and students and schools have what they need in order to reopen, so that we can then restart our economy. I think we need to protect our most vulnerable, which is our children, and that should be our priority when we talk about opening up the economy. I also support any changes that we can do to making sure that our revenues are strong and that we protect small businesses.
So quick follow-up, Deborah. As you were mentioning that some business owners are concerned about their safety when they reopen and liabilities. Do you have thoughts about liability protection when you do all you know to do, all that's recommended of you, and yet you have trial attorneys that may be coming after you as a small business? Do you have any thoughts about mitigating that at the legislative level?
I do not have any thoughts about that at this time. No.
Okay. Thank you. Just a quick follow-up. And as many of you have talked about, you know, our budget is coming up. The next 2 years is going to be difficult. And we have, it's going to be, every business owner must work on a budget. Every household must work on a budget. What is your approach to the next state budget? Utilization of the rainy day fund or an austerity budget have been talked about. Can you give your thoughts on that? And we start in the 47th with Ted Cooke.
Yeah, so my thoughts on the next state budget. So we definitely need austerity. We definitely need to look at reducing state services. Same, we're also to reduce taxation, because our economy cannot grow under a burden of the state spending $27 billion a year. It's simply unsustainable. That's what's gotten us to this point. I think Pat can fact check me on the numbers, but I think it's 3.5 or 4 billion in the last 3 legislative sessions. During the fat years, during the good years, we should have been putting money aside towards the rainy day fund, and then that has been spent on other things. And again, usually I believe it's at the last part of the session, the end of the session. We have got to stop doing that. Again, we needed to have the school reform with McCleary. That was good, although I've got a problem with how the WA negotiated. But like, for example, Sound Transit 3 is kind of the poster child for me. We're spending $1 billion a mile. You know, we could spend so much less. We just reclaim some railroad grades, which have been put into railroad and bicycle paths. Now, the railroad grades have been put into walking and bicycle paths. I hate to take walkers and cyclers off their paths, but you can do that in a neighborhood. We need light rail, and you could do it for pennies on the dollar. So, and then you get into the environmental permitting, and we need to streamline and standardize environmental permitting. We need to streamline, standardize, frankly, all permitting. But I think that the way we're going to get out of this is by growing the state economy. And right now we've had we've had years of Democrat leadership, 10 years under Pat, where we have seen Boeing start to leave. Amazon is starting to flee the city corridor. They're looking at other options, and we've had such a great opportunity with the economy. We put ourselves in a very hard spot. Now, I don't want to just pull services away from people. Am I going over time? I haven't gotten the thing yet.
It feels like it. I didn't want to use service.
Anyway,
Yes.
so that's kind of my idea. So I'm sorry, I probably went long.
Thank you. We're having technical difficulties at this time, so now
Sorry.
we're asking that you self-check yourself for the moment. Thank you so much.
I just thought, man, I've talked way more than 2 minutes.
Well, at 90 seconds. But to be fair, I must now give Pat time to respond to his approach to the next state budget.
Yeah, absolutely.
Respond to some of your comments as a courtesy.
Well, thank you very much. I'll be brief anyway. We have been really responsible with our budget. The growth that you've seen is actually due to the McCleary decision, which was a bipartisan solution, Republicans and Democrats coming together to make significant new investments in our school system. And we'll see those investments play out over the next 12 years as our kindergartners make it through to graduation. On the budget front, we don't spend our rainy day fund on anything other than natural disasters at this point. It takes a 60% vote, which means it's got to be a bipartisan vote in order to spend those funds on anything other than for disaster. So we've spent it on fires. If we utilize the rainy day fund today in order to help address our current budget situation, we would actually be positive by $760 million in the current fiscal year. The only issue is in the out years. We're required to balance over 4 years. So in the next biennium, we're short by about $1.4 billion. Part of that will be made up by a number of actions that we worked with the governor on to put a moratorium on new hires, to put a moratorium on new service contracts. So those savings will also reduce that $1.4 billion deficit. But then as we go through the budget, one of the things that recessions do is it causes agencies to look back at how they deliver their services and their programs. And we've already found a number of different situations where we can do something more effectively, still providing that service, but saving dollars. And so it's going through the budget item by item and looking for ways to do things better. So, our situation, thanks to the rainy day fund, we're in actually okay shape, especially when you compare it to other states across this country that are facing huge problems with their pension systems, their unemployment systems. We are fiscally responsible here, and a number of national organizations say that our economy is the best economy in the country.
Thank you, Pat. A follow-up question for you. You had mentioned earlier that with every crisis comes great opportunities. What are some opportunities you see during this crisis?
Well, there are many. Just a few of those things I've already mentioned are the fact that agencies are really forced to look at the way they deliver services. And they're doing that right now as part of their requirement to look at how they would reduce 15% of their budgets. Secondly, again, it's the B&O tax. It's been made very clear that when a company is not making money and they're still forced to pay taxes, it simply does not make sense. And so that's another thing we can actually address next year. It's working with the business community, not forcing a new system on the business community.
Okay, thank you. I've got my timer out to get us back on track. And so we're going to move to Deborah. The question is, what is your approach to the next state budget? We've heard of utilization of the rainy day fund or an austerity budget. Your thoughts?
My approach to the next state budget, I have said earlier that I would like to make sure that we protect our most vulnerable. I do not believe a austerity budget during COVID would be ethical or moral, and so I do not support that. I think that this is a rainy day and we should use our rainy day funds. And I also support a capital gains tax.
Thank you. Kyle.
Yes, as I mentioned previously, a lot of us did. We're going to have to cut the taxes. We're going to have to cut the B&O tax. And as Pat mentioned, actually, yes, COVID, it is a natural disaster as well right now here. So we can create a small business relief packages using those funds to give a bigger boost to our small businesses so they can thrive through. We're going to have to cut on unprofitable projects and reinvest those funds in our economy so it can grow. And of course, a decision of Boeing to leave our state, well, not completely, it's a devastating. It's a lot of working spaces, I think approximately in about 20,000. So we're going to have to get in a negotiation with the Boeing, and let's see what we can do as a legislature to make them stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mia.
Yeah, thank you. And I would agree. This is not the time where we would just slash and dash our budget. We need to go line item by line item. I'm very happy that Pat is in the leadership in helping to champion that work, because we really need people who have the historical look back to understand where we cut last time and we were paying for nearly a decade later in those cuts. We know that the governor's office has to come forward with their budget first, so we're going to have to work in partnership, not only with other chambers or other legislative branches, but with other caucuses. We have seen, even working through the pandemic and all of our other budget exercises, that this is usually a four-corner conversation. We rely on others in the legislature to help make decisions on behalf of all of us, which means that that is a complicated truth and that we have our work cut out for us. I'm very happy that there's a lot of motivated people willing to roll up their sleeves and really figure this out. I agree that Boeing is important and other large companies, and they have a lot of power in Olympia, and we have been watching that for decades. So it's really an opportunity for them to tell us what they need, but also this is our job, right? Is to let small businesses also have that same opportunity. Excited to make sure we have that conversation all along.
Thank you. Marliza.
I think that this is going to require a think tank to tackle, actually. I don't know that any one person can step into a situation like this that's so convoluted and has so many moving parts to just say, oh, this is what we need to do, and so be it. I think it'll take some really great minds to come out of this in a thriving way. I think all government funded programs need to be reviewed to determine their efficacy, to determine, how do we need them right now, and how many people are they supporting? I think all government departments should be rewarded for finding ways to save money. A lot of times, from within your own dynamics, you can come up with the best solutions. So that's what I would put forth at this time.
Thank you, Marliza. So a clarifying question. When you said it should be a think tank because of the complication of it, as an elected official, where do you wait for that report to come back? Do you roll your sleeves up? Where are you in that think tank?
Oh, I would instigate it. I'd say, look, people, this is what we have to do.
Okay. Just want to clarify. Thank you. What is your approach to this next state budget?
Did you call on me? I'm sorry, it cut out.
Yes, it did.
Okay. Well, as I understand it, the budget is negotiated by a team in the legislature. I would hope that our leadership on both sides, in both caucuses, would listen to the representatives. And definitely, we need to look at ways that we can streamline and lean things up. When I was in the Navy, we had a program called Benny Suggs. It means beneficial suggestions. And people would get an incentive for finding ways to cut fraud, waste, and abuse. I think that is definitely something we should look at for at least state employees, and maybe have an incentive program for businesses, ways to cut that fraud, waste, and abuse, so we can continue to provide the services that are mandated to provide. But just like in any budget, in your home budget, in your business budget, you have to prioritize. You have to prioritize with the things that you have to do, then with the things you need to do, and then the things you would like to do. So we cannot be the end all and be all to everyone. We are not from womb to tomb, an ATM for people. We're supposed to govern. We should not be making a profit, but we should be breaking even. And so when we look at our budget, obviously we do need a rainy day fund for emergencies, but we need to prioritize, and then we need to make sure we're not hurting the vulnerable that in our state.
Thank you. And do we still have Tina? I think I lost video, Tina. The Kent Chamber would ask that legislators resist the temptation to impose new taxes or other higher costs on our private sector businesses to balance sagging budgets. Just a note that we'd like to put out there on our behalf. As a chamber, we have advocated for setting priorities of government, reducing unfunded mandates, streamlining government agencies, and ensuring our tax structure and taxes are not creating barriers for business growth and expansion. So with that being said, in your closing statement, which is going to be for 2 minutes, please tell us why you are the candidate that why you're the candidate that should receive our vote. I'm going to try to do the reverse order from our introductions. And so we're going to end with 47th District and Ted Cooke in position number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you guys so much. What a great opportunity. So good to hear from everybody. Great candidates. So in terms of business growth, I think I am the candidate for position 2 for the 47th District. Pat has a great heart. He's done some great service, but I think he looks at things through a lens of higher government, of more government. And we actually both took a questionnaire for Habitat for Humanity, and there was a stark difference because over and over again, Pat leans towards, hey, listen, we need more programs. We need to do more. We need more government intervention. Let's get more funds. Let's do more things. And I lean towards, we need to get government out of the way so people can build. We need to reduce government, reduce regulation, allow people to be free to make their own decisions to continue with their lives. And it's apples and oranges. It's a difference of opinion. But I'm the candidate who follows more closely to Kent Chamber in terms of what they want to do. If we want to be able to build, be able to have roads for transportation, do stuff like that, then I absolutely think that government should focus on its legitimate roles, self-defense, a very basic safety net, shepherding a small handful of natural monopolies like water, sewer, stuff like that. And I think that is the path forward for Washington State. It's worked in the past. It will continue to work. And I think anytime we try socialism, anytime we try equality of outcomes, that's when you see government start to go bankrupt. And that's when you start to see people lose liberty, property, and even life. So Ted Cooke, Ted Cooke, COOKE.org. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Tina back, and sorry we lost you there for a moment, Tina. We left off with your response to your approach to the next state budget with utilization of the rainy day fund or an austerity budget. Those things have been thrown out there. Would you like to have comment on that?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I lost my internet connection to my phone, so thank you. I think there's a lot of good comments that were made, and I really do think as we go in, looking at the rainy day fund, if this isn't a rainy day, I don't know what is. I do think we need to tap into those funds. It is a pandemic that we're in. Also, I think we need to be very thoughtful in the budget. I really appreciate that the budget team is going item by item and that government's been asked to see what they can streamline and change. And you think about technology and all of us on Zoom and all the cost savings of travel and other things, you know, we should keep our efficiencies that we gained during COVID. I also think when we're looking at the budget, we do need to be sensitive. I would like to see those most in need, those with behavioral health and who are homeless, get the services they need. I also want to see the streamlined sales tax mitigation. So there's some things we really need to invest in. But again, I know it was mentioned earlier, I think we need to be sensitive to whatever we do. And, you know, I know capital gains was mentioned, and I think that's an interesting one. You know, most of us, most families have been hard hit, most businesses have been hard hit, but there's some that are prospering. And, you know, is there a small percentage that if we do need help down the road in future budgets, do we need to look at it? So I think things are on the table, but I think it's a dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina. I'm going to repeat kind of my closing statement for the sake of Tina that missed out. But the Kent Chamber has advocated for setting our priorities of government, reducing unfunded mandates, streamlining government agencies, and ensuring our tax structure and tax rates are not barriers for business growth and expansion. So in your closing statement, which is 2 minutes long, please tell us why you are the candidate that should receive our vote. And Ted Cooke already spoke, and so now I'll turn it over to Pat.
Well, thank you very much, Carmen, for officiating over this forum today, and thanks to the Kent Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring it. You know, Boeing's been brought up a couple times, so I just wanted to say that it was the economic situation that forced them to combine the 787, consolidate the 787 line. And one of the rationales moving to South Carolina was the fact that the larger version of the 787 can't fit in the Everett facility. And that's why they moved it to South Carolina, which is disappointing, to say the least. But as we're moving forward, I know Ted believes that he's the best candidate for the business community. I believe the same thing. And that's why I'm endorsed by the Association of Washington Business, because I'm willing to sit down and work with people, whether I agree or disagree with them, to find solutions that move our state forward in a positive direction. Washington State is far different than Washington, D.C. By rolling up our sleeves, we actually get work done here in Washington State. And I'm very proud of that. During my time in the legislature, we've been able to accomplish a great deal. And we've done it in a way that really helped citizens here in the state of Washington. We learned from the Great Recession that damaging the social safety net really sets us back. And from that learning, I think that will help guide us as we're moving forward over the next 2 years. I've worked with the Kent Chamber of Commerce, the Auburn Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Covington Chamber of Commerce during my tenure in the legislature. I've built good relationships with the chambers. And I think that if we want to move forward, communication is key. Making sure that we're in constant contact as proposals are raised. And I commit to doing that, working with you in how best we can move this state forward. And again, I believe we can come out of it as a better state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. From District 33, position number 2, I'll start with Mia Gregerson.
Well, thank you again for letting me be part of this conversation today. And I think, you know, when I'm thinking about my best response and why I feel like I would be somebody with the most experience and willing to take on the challenge, and having the relationships with local businesses and the ability to keep those doors open. I feel like businesses have been saying all along that they want stability. It's hard to run a business if we're not being level-headed and making sure that we're providing a structure in which they can participate and still go back home and run their business. I also think that we need consistency. We need to understand what these decisions are going to be and be consistent about that. We can't think that right now is an excuse to just throw everything out the window that we've been doing. And I think businesses will appreciate that. So I feel like while I'm a a Democrat, my opponent is a Republican or an independent, that I can work well across the aisle. And regardless of how we agree on things, I think that regardless of party, that I have a track record of working with all parties in all parts of the state. And I think that's what Washington State needs right now, is a real strong foundation of people willing to roll their sleeves up and challenge ourselves, try to become a better state in this frame of mind, but also making sure that those that are most vulnerable and those businesses that need us the most are going to continue to thrive as we push our way through this.
Thank you, Mia. Marliza.
Every time.
You're
Okay, so
consistent.
I will say I am the candidate to vote for transparency. When taxes were raised last year by $27 billion, they were created in the middle of the night behind locked doors while the rest of us were sleeping. Because I'm for the working class and poor, I would not have voted in favor of that bill. If people had now that $27 billion still in their pockets, they could choose to either spend it or save it, and many would spend it, thus helping our small businesses. So, so yeah, transparency and honesty. Please vote for me, Marliza Melzer.
Thank you, Marliza. Position number 1 on the 47th, Deborah Entenmann.
Thank you, Kent Chamber, for this opportunity to speak with you today. I would ask that you consider voting for Deborah Entenmann, because I feel that what we need to have strong communities is strong schools and strong infrastructure so that businesses can thrive. And in order to do that, we need to have revenue and we need to have a fair and equitable tax system. And to do that, I think voting for me will get us closer to where we would like to be. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Deborah. Kyle.
Thank you very much, Ken Chambers, for the opportunity to speak. As I briefly mentioned in my opening statement, I'm not running for an office to achieve any political gain. I'm just running to bring in new innovative ideas to Olympia. By electing me, well, actually by hiring me for that job as a legislator, you're putting yourself in the legislature. So all I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna hear you and bring your voice in Olympia. Well, as a father of 3 and also as an active Sunday school director in my church, I do believe that parents have a full right to choose what's best for their kids. I also want to see our kids to be successful in the future, which they need a lot of tools for it, that we can start in a very early age, that by introducing classes with the concept of business, of construction, of economic, of trade, even though politics. So I am opposing any tax increases. I am for less government overreach in the state. I am a pro-business, pro-life, vote for Kyle, 47 LD.
Thank you, Kyle. From the 33rd, position number 1, Carrie French.
Well, thank you, Kent Chamber, for this opportunity to speak. This is my first forum. So I really think that we had a huge missed opportunity with the Boeing 787. And that doesn't just affect Boeing, that affects all the small businesses who provide parts and different things for those, for that airline. We could have possibly built a bigger facility for them. Well, they would have built it themselves, obviously, but we could have created the regulations that would allow them to do that. So that's a huge missed opportunity. I don't believe that we should have unfunded mandates. I think that's ridiculous for the government to say you have to do this, but we're not going to provide any way to get it done. I agree with everything that you have said, what the Kent Chamber believes in. I believe in that absolutely 100%. I am not for raising taxes, especially in this time. I want low taxes, but we also need to make sure that our kids are getting the education. And in this lockdown situation, they are not getting it and they are falling behind and they are having anxiety and depression. And it is really spiraling out of control. So we've really got to open this state back up. Obviously, we need to do it safely, but we need to open this state back up. Let Washingtonians do what Washingtonians do, and that is be successful and prosperous. I also work across the aisle with many people in several of the bills that I got introduced in the state. We did work across the aisle with folks. I do believe that we need consistency and stability. It has been very difficult for businesses to deal with the myriad of regulations that change from hour to hour with this governor. So we need to make sure that we have reasonable, regulations. And I also want to bring up Dwayne Davidson, the treasurer, wants to bring in financial literacy into the schools. And I think that would be a great idea. So Kerry French.
Thank you, Carrie. Representative Orwell.
Thank you. I want to thank the chamber. I appreciate this forum and all the work you're doing for our community. Thank you. I would ask for your support to return to Olympia. I think everything we do in life is a team, and I've been so proud to team up with the leaders in Kent, the businesses, the leaders in the schools, the leaders in the community. And I do think that it's going to be by working together, we're going to get through these really tough issues. Not one person has all the answers, but together we can find creative, innovative ways. And we're seeing that, right now, working with the South King County police chiefs and the community leaders, looking at how can we redo behavioral health? How can we create a system where if someone's having a mental health crisis, that we can respond, get them in services. So I do think this is an opportunity to support our community, to get healthier, and to support businesses, and to really move forward ahead. I would love your support. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our candidates. It's been a pleasure to moderate this afternoon. There were other questions that came through the chat that we didn't get to, along the lines of defunding the police, the Black Lives Matter movement, mental health services in the South King County region. So as you are hearing from your constituents and our membership, I hope that they reach out to you specifically to cover those. Thank you to those members who provided questions for this event. And thank you, candidates, again for your service in stepping up. This is long, hard, this is unknown, and you did a very swell job today. I said swell, sorry. I'm now going to return the meeting over to our CEO, Zenobia Harris.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carmen, for moderating that. And thank you so much to the candidates. If you can't tell from my video, I too am having issues with internet today. And so I'm on my phone, so I would ask for your grace in that. But I think that this is a really great conversation. I am, honored to be able to host an event like this. What I see as a leader in the business community is that there needs to be more conversations like this. And so there were questions that were coming in that we couldn't get answers to that are definitely important, not only for the business community, but also for the residents of the cities. And so look for another invitation for us to continue this conversation. And that's going to be coming out pretty soon. But again, thank you so much. The Chamber again is grateful to have you. We wish you all the best luck. We are here as an avenue to get any information that you need out to your constituents as well. And I appreciate you being able to join us today. Again, thank you so much to our sponsors, South King Media, I Love Kent specifically, for allowing us to have this hosted online. And then also thank you so much to Fairway Independent Mortgage for allowing us for sponsoring this event. Along the lines of different events that we have going on and opportunities for you all to get to know each other and get to know more about the community, we have these monthly luncheons. Next month, we will be hosting the fire chief. So Mr. Matthews, Chief Matthew Morris will be online with us next month, the first Thursday of the month so that's November 5th at 11:30 a.m. There are also a few other events. If we can just go to the next slide, we have events with workshops for Medicare Basics for both employers and HR staff. And then we have a workshop for Green River College. They're doing a virtual info session. And so just again, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for taking the time. Wonderful job, Carmen, and also the candidates for keeping your time, and be on the lookout for more information and a second session with your candidates. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.